And good morning, everybody. This is Ed the Pagan on the Ed the Pagan Show, morning show, Coffee with Ed the Pagan. And I am absolutely drinking coffee this morning. Um, Again, wanted to talk to everybody. Yesterday was, I will not even try to pronounce it, but May's Eve, and the idea of the fairies and the world between the world of the earth as we know it and the fairies were combined. And this is probably one of the most powerful, energetic Beltanes in the history of our community as long as we've been alive. What do I mean by that? Today is a day and energy. Over this weekend, there will be many, many rituals that will be participants. And for many people, these will be some of the largest rituals they will have ever cast due to the fact that they're going to be online and energetic. And so that is an amazing aspect of it. I'm so fascinated by that concept. And we are just checking one little thing. And it says that yes, we are on. Good. So go if you want to join me, you can go ahead into my personal page at A Hubbard, or the show at the Pagan, and we'll have connections on how you can ask questions and answers today. I'm going to spend a little time talking about it. So this Beltane, this energy situation, and is where in the northern hemisphere the boundaries, the veil of the world lowers, and in the southern hemisphere, where it's just following Samhain's pattern, which is the death and life cycle, which is the opposite of Beltane, I guess, in many ways, is also about to reduce itself down to its lowest level. So spirits are walking the world today, and it does it twice a year. So the Beltane, and the idea of the Beltane is that the fairies, the fae, the good neighbors, the people who should not be named, it depends on which tradition you are. This is not talking about tame, calm little spirits. We're talking about powerful entities that live in this world, both in the living and the dead. And there are two different very forms of these spirits that walk. As you know, last October 31st, we basically worked in really hard to create a situation in Salem where we calculated with through astrology, thank you, Alan Salome, through numerous rituals across the world, and I want to thank everybody who casted those. We lowered the veil. I mean, we even said we crashed the veil between the living and the dead. We wanted to reduce the friction between our ability to cast magic, our ability to cast spells, our ability to communicate with the dead. And that was going to be very important. And this year, we're now seeing the most singular energetic moment in the Beltane history of the Northern Hemisphere, because of so many rituals will be casted through crystal machines and intelligent electricity. Yes. Through crystallized communication along lines of light, wires of light, and soundless, wireless communication through spirit, through the ether, to bring people together, regardless of their space, regardless of their distance, regardless of their connections in other spaces, are going to commit ritual acts of joy and celebration. Now, it's not going to be as physical as it is, but we've asked last October to lower these veils so that more people could communicate energetically, spell-wise, work-wise. And this Beltane is the most energetic version of that yet. Think about it. Yeah. And in this miracle that we're living in, we have now seen the natural world begin to heal a little. And it's allowed the ground to calm down. We have seen, some seismic activity has reduced. Time, but the sort of day-to-day rumbling, the cold iron striking the earth, driving is coming along and dealing with that energy is amazing. We're now seeing more nature come back. We saw 60 million turtles in Hawaii and other places. They've been measuring it. The largest harvest of baby turtles yet. And while nature's cruel and some of them won't make it, we're seeing in Australia, as the animals, the kangaroos, the roos come out of the woods, we're seeing the dolphins in Venice. We're seeing for the first time animals in places they have not been in decades, filling these spaces. We're seeing the reduction of the air pollution. We're actually seeing violent weather because of the lack of particles going across. And that's another really powerful aspect. and that we're seeing now happening in the world today. So Beltane is a very important day, and it's going to be one of the most energetic Beltanes anyone has ever seen. There will be more encounters with the faith this weekend over the next few days than most people have ever seen. As Byron Ballard calls it, Time of the Towers, as Oberon Zal, Vision 2020, and everything else. So my story and my energy with the Fae has grown so dramatically. As you know, I'm Paladin General of the Corellian tradition and Pagan Order of Paladins of Gaia, which is a order dedicated to the pagan world and to the world of Gaia, most particularly Gaia. And we say pagan simply because they are the countryside dwellers, and because our community has had so many voices come through it. So we're going to play a game here in a minute that I think is very fun, and people have been teasing me. But today, where should I be today? In the alternative from non-coronavirus world, and if everything turned out right, I would here be with the Honorable His Holiness Patrick McCollum in California, and talking about his 50 years of service. So let me go ahead and talk about Patrick McCollum here for a minute, if I may. One of our world's great peacekeepers. He is a man of prophecy. And the story he has told me, and the one that I find so fascinating, is that very early in his career, when people asked for a wish, for a granting of energy, and he went forward onto his altar at a time when they committed energy, a lot of energy. He goes, I want to bring peace to the world. That was his goal. He wanted to be a peacekeeper. And he was always told me that, a lot of people said, well, I want a little bit more money. I want a more better life. I want everything else. But he says, why can't we use it for the magic for big things? And he thought at the time, and I was just a little baby at the time he did this. And he's, he was in, he just turned, I believe, 70. I think so. And so when he did this, he was a very young man, 50 years ago. And so that would make, that was always interesting. That would make me 7 years old. And I felt, I always felt that there was a call there. And in that moment, he wanted to create peace in the world. He wanted to change the world and live this life of being a great peacekeeper. And over the 50 years of his life, Spirit has given it to him. He's a Wiccan, a self-declared Wiccan who works at the highest levels of society. Jane Goodall is one of his friends. And so today I would be in this alternative universe, and hope soon we'll be discussing his 50 years of service under this idea of creating a spell that was so large. So that's very important. And I've always thought that was very interesting. I thought that was very wonderful. And so my heart's out to him today. Go out, and if you see him on Facebook, he's showing pictures of where he's living and his roads, and he talks about peace and energy. So in this sort of thing, so I've had this encounter with Spirit last year. And let me go ahead a step further. So I have encounters with entities in the past, but I've always kind of been skeptical. And you've heard this story already now. Some people have, but it's still so dramatic to me, and it's still playing itself out. Last July at Starwood, on the second night, I had basically watched the city of Chicago, basically, in essence, rip apart, bringing tanks, we call them bulldozers. And then earlier in my life, I had this vision of having to face off against tanks. And it was a big energy. And I always thought that they were going to be guns, but no, they were bulldozers. And I knew that millions of lives would be lost. It would destroy so many lives. I didn't understand at the time it would be one of the most important forms of life for me. It was the earthworms. And the city of Chicago stripped one of my fields burned it to the ground. They took not only the topsoil, they not only took the worms, they took everything. They decided, while we were in court, while we were dealing with this problem, they decided to take it down to bedrock. They actually made the land worse than where I started, in the middle of Chicago, in the middle of this poor community. Community of the day that would have had food growing on nearly an acre of land, 6.66 acres of land, instead has barren rock and destroyed land. Yeah, the city did that, and they did it against my wishes. And I was so despondent, so hurt. It had crystals in it. I did everything. And the pagan community came out to help me try to prevent that happening. But it was decided that the powers that be could no longer tolerate what we were doing. And so they destroyed it. And they put us under so many fines and so many energies. And my brave son and all my brave workers worked really hard to prevent that. And all the people signed petitions. We did a lot of things. Our lawyers at the time, we called them our worm lawyers, and they were very proud of what they did, could not prevent that loss or destruction. Just couldn't stop it. So when you hear about people saying, oh yeah, they believe in climate change, they want to change this world, I don't see that as true. I see these powers be who had utilized our services, utilized our story, utilized our energy. When it was no longer served them, they destroyed it. And yes, I was part of the Climate Change Accord of Chicago. I was part of the Climate Accord of Change. My ideas wasn't in there. I was very much battling it. And I felt so betrayed, so hurt, and so painful of what happened. It hurt me in ways I don't think a lot of people understand. It burned me to my core. I felt dark and defeated. And so I went to Starwood. And not only did I go to Starwood, I had people help me. Lawrence Lerner picked me up from the train station. My membership was donated. The cost of going to was donated to me because I had basically just lost almost everything I had. I went there with shoes that rattled, and I went in with a borrowed tent that didn't have a tarp on it. I was a pathetic looking soul. I mean, if you had seen me, I had the signs of defeat. My shoes were falling apart. They literally did fall apart during Starwood. And I was hurt. I was pathetic. I had a tent that didn't have a tarp. I mean, I had one of those open air tents. Somebody let me a tarp to kind of get in there. I brought very little food with me, mostly oatmeal and a few things. I was pathetic. But that was okay. So in that moment, I always joke about taking the sacraments. And I went out, and I didn't care anymore. And I went out, and I would now have an encounter. I would be near the Fairy Grove. I was like, everybody was out in the fields, and there was, the second night of the festival, and everybody was exuberant and energetic and wild. And I went off to the distance. I just couldn't handle it. And I went to the Fairy Grove, and then I would soon see an energy, a being of such great proportions. And there was actually two beings of epic proportion. And that spirit, a fairy, a fae, a spirit of great natural energy came up and asked me, why do I cry? I was annoying it. I annoyed it with its pain, with my pain. And it talked to me, and it says, your war is about to begin. Your conflict that you have imagined all your life is about to begin. The world is going to change rapidly. And I go, no, my world's already changed. I'm done with this stuff. And I was just really mad. And he goes, no. This is really just a beginning. The magics of the world are about to emerge. We need your help. We, the Fae, need your help. Okay, this is weird. And I went with it. Okay, yeah. I know, I'm the same reaction that you would think. Okay, all right. And the message was very basic. Prepare for prepare for the long isolation. You're soon going to be isolated. We're all going to be isolated. That the world is going to isolate itself again and again over the next, over a spirit cycle. And that the Fae were going to be able to emerge and help, and that they were about to see the world change. Not only change, but that nature was going to react. And so this is why I don't believe in the government conspiracies, because I was warned that the world's going to react. We're going to find a way to show the world that there's still hope. And that as a paladin, that I needed to understand that I was a paladin of their world. And I went, okay, yeah, I can tell the message. I've been telling the message, but I have no evidence. I have no way of showing that I've had this encounter. I did not understand, UPG, unverified personal gnosis. I was having a personal gnosis. And at the time, I wasn't quite sure if I hadn't gone too far and my mind was breaking down with the grief and the pain. And I said, I have no way of speaking this way. I have no way of seeing this. I have no way of hearing this. I have no way of doing this. And he said, oh, people will see you and they will hear you and you will hear them. And I go, yeah. I have no way of proving that. I'm not going to carry this message unless I can have a way of understanding it. And then what would happen next would be that he would pluck my eyes out and he would hand it to this beautiful entity. It looks like a tree. Some people would call it a dryad. Some people would call it Gaia. Some people would call it healing. But this tree, this beautiful, and it's hard to describe entity that I sense was feminine, but that's an irrelevancy. And she was washing my eyes while he was telling me that the idea was that I was going to be able to gather people together to kind of save and create seed spaces. That's right. Spaces where locality was more important, that we would soon see people becoming more localized, that we would see energies where we would have to preserve knowledge preserved in light. I go, well, what do you mean, like books and things like that? Because, yeah, well, in light, what do you do? In crystals. And I understand it today. Of course, we communicate in crystals through light, through intelligent electricity. And I would have this capability of communicating and creating a ritual. And he told me that one of the entity's biggest messages is that before a year has passed and that we would not meet again for a time. I thought I was going to try meeting this entity this year, and I may still try, but Starwood has been canceled. Unless I get special permission to go on that land, I will not be able to reach them there. But it is interesting, this Beltane, we're going to be reaching so much more deeper into it. And that while I've created the crystal web, I didn't create the crystal web. Many people created the crystal web. I inspired an idea to expand it. So it's not my creation, but it is definitely the machine, the magical, mystical machine that I helped expand and start anew for myself and for so many other people. And ties it to many other grids, older, deeper, ancient. And then we have our own detectable one on top of it, of over 1 million crystals through our tradition and through all these entities. So I tried to, so that I would soon cast a circle. The circle would be soon cast. I would be involved with casting a circle that covered the world. We've done that now. We did that after lustration. We actually had a ritual that covered the world, that circled the world. The elements were called from across the nations. Elementals called from the nations into our circle. Isn't that amazing? In multiple languages, in multiple nations, in multiple continents. And this Beltane weekend, that isn't just going to happen once. It's going to happen dozens of times. We're going to cast energetic circles utilizing our computer connections to visually, audially, and energetically combine using intelligent electricity, the internet, through wires of light. How do you think the internet works now? It works through fiber optics filled with light that has signals in light. We've always been told there's messages in light. We've always been told angels communicate in light. Entities of spiritual energies can connect in light. Could light actually be a carrier of information? And we know that's now true. And we use machines that are basically silicon in nature. That's true too. So we're this Beltane weekend, we're going to have this amazing ability to do so in a world that has calmed down, which is quieter. And it won't remain quiet. This is the last really quiet weekend because the world's going to really start opening up again. Regardless if it's for the good or for the ill, the world is going to start opening up again. So this is the quietest possible weekend we will have to cast these spells to the Beltane. And so there they are, washing my eyes. I'm feeling really dissected at this point, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, have I injured myself? Am I hurt? Am I insane? Am my mind completely disconnected from it? And then I got my eyes back in and my voice back in and my ears back on my head. And the entity said, now be happy, be joyful, go forth and prepare and do the work. All these signs are going to come to you. Okay. There I am stumbling through the night, quite stunned by the experience, not sure that I'm in my right mind. And I make it back to my tent, which is on the other side of camp, and I'm seeing lights and people, and I'm happy, I'm upset, I'm so emotionally outward. I feel like my guts are on the outside. Everybody can see me. Everybody can see that I'm not in this right space. And I eventually lay down. Okay. I go, okay. And I kind of dream. I had lots of dreams. And I was next to a place called Paw Paw, and the drums were going all night. So in my dreams, and for the rest of the week, I would hear these things. I would hear the drums. Drums are the call of my people. Let them drum, let them drum, let them drum. And there was a voice in my head that was so strong. The drums are the call of my people. They are the sound of my people. Let them drum, let them drum, let them drum. And when I woke up in the morning, I looked out to the trees, and the trees looked so odd. Like, oh my God, the trees are so weird looking. And then it took me a minute to go, that's not the right color. Because remember, I had been colorblind all my life. Obviously, you had to be colorblind all your life. I was in the military. I was going to be a gunner's mate missiles. I was going to be I was one of the smart kids. And I was learning electronics and everything else. And I passed all my book work. They got me into the labs, and they couldn't pass any labs. And then the senior petty officer came over, chief petty officer, senior chief, actually to be more exact, came over, was in charge of it. He goes, all right, what's the problem? You've done so well with your books. You know this stuff. And he handed me one of the simplest exercises out there to do a wiring. I'm supposed to just simply wire a light. And he looked at it, and I couldn't get it quite right. I got one right, and I got one wrong, and then I got another one wrong, and he handed me a chit. He sent me over to the doctor. They put me in this thing, and he goes, oh, you're colorblind. Guess what? You can't be a gunner's mate. You can't see the wires. You can't make it out. And I would become a yeoman, which would change my life. So then from that point on, I would be learning to be a leader, a different type of person. But forever changed me. And again, you'll find out throughout the Correllian tradition and through different spaces and different places I've been that have affected me. A lot of the blues that you see inside the Correllian, the original Correllian site, wasn't because I love blues so much, what I do, but it was because I couldn't see it. So I had to make sure everything was visible to me. And so this is pretty historic. It was records, that sort of thing. And so then I looked at it and says, oh my God, is that what they call green? I couldn't see green. Everything was kind of shaded blue. Kind of like the Eiffel 65 song, Blue. And I saw green, and I saw reds, and I saw distinctions. And it was really overwhelming. It silenced me. And then I would go to see a friend of mine, Phil Farber's class. And he was talking, and it was such an amazing experience for me because all of a sudden I saw all these people. And we had this wonderful experience of changing and shifting our realities. And I talked to him, and it's like, yeah, I can prove this. And since then I've proved I have full spectrum color vision now. The spirits gave me full color spectrum as an ideology, something to prove that I had something happen to me at Starwood. I mean, I can't tell you that I can prove to you that I had an encounter with a fairy general. That's what he was. He was a general. He was the leader, a war leader. He was a protector of the land, much as I see myself as a protector of my faith, the protector of people. But I have this color vision now that you can go into my medical records, and people have, and in military records, you can go in and see that I was disqualified because I had this, and now I can pass a color test. Not only can I pass color tests, I can pass some of the most extraneous color tests. And so now I have this miracle within myself, this verifiable personal gnosis. I can verify it to myself that it happened to me. And now I'm coming out there. And then some of the messages I received, the world calming down, the world is now calm. It's going to get back to being noisy, and it's going to, and nature is going to be once again pushed back. And so today we're seeing as this entity, these entities, this is sort of viral conditioning happening into the world today. I'm going to tell you, I see it very differently than other people. we're about to shut down the slaughterhouses because we were afraid of this disease. And that would have changed our perspective. But instead, in essence, the high priest of capitalism, our president, decided to use war acts to assure that the sacrificial slaughter of animals for our food. And I'm a meat eater. I'm not going to deny that. But this sort of, and the sort of entities have said, that we need to get back into balance. It's not that we can't eat meats, but we're doing it so disproportionately that, now we're going to order sick people back into the slaughterhouses to sacrificially kill animals at a large scale in order to feed us. Now, if we're healthy, this is not the argument, but we're going to use acts of war to maintain our food. And at the same time, we're throwing away milk, vegetables at epic proportions, where we will not use those same acts to preserve that food. Now, there are some farmers who are acting on it. So this is kind of the magical energies we're out. We have governors of Maryland who are protecting medical supplies from our federal government. We have in Michigan armed men threatening the governor to maintain this unhealthy, this strange life that is about to crash on us. That, for me, is what the Beltane message this year is about. I know it sounds crazy. I know that this is not what you're used to me talking about. I'm usually talking about internet connections. You're hearing about me talk about growth of our community. But this is today where my mind's at, my thoughts at, and I'm happy to share them. I'm not afraid to share my thoughts. I don't care what people think about me in a broad way. Sure, I would like people to like me. I wish people respect me. I know people hardly ever listen to me, so I know that's a part of it. But people do. I have many, many people who have supported me, and we've done amazing things. I am seeing the Order of Paladins, which handbook is, I think, coming out today. Sir Elizabeth Hamilton and a lot of the other workers have done, Sir Elizabeth Corral. And a lot of people have been really working on it to get our Paladin orders, which is a heroic order. They've taken on heroic work trying to continue this idea of communication. And they were able to help design, along with others of the Correllian tradition, design a ritual that went around the world to honor the living and the dead. And now this weekend, you're seeing many groups. You're seeing the Correllians are going to have their ritual on Sunday, which will be the Beltane Samhain ritual, which again will be another international event. You're seeing the ATC, I believe, is going to be holding theirs, the Aquarian Tabernacle Church under Lady Belladonna, who is the vessel of Demeter, who once brought us the message of warnings across here. You're going to see the people like Lady Phyllis Crott, who's now has gone through the process of the disease. Yes, one of our own, one of our elders, and she has survived it. And she's getting better, and she's going to be doing her rituals. And there are virtual Beltane rituals of epic proportion, and we're seeing the festivals, which were having difficulty surviving and showing their value, now going online and being bigger and bolder and showing their value in a very great way. We're seeing psychics who are talking about, messages that are coming across. We're hearing about dreamers who are having vivid dreams. And then the scientists are saying we're having more vivid dreams than we've ever had. And and they're trying to explain it away because it's the COVID, it's all these other reasons. So we have this sort of miracle of the dreamers. This Beltane weekend, understand our magic is flowing better than it's ever flowed. It has grown in its ability. We have become exponential magicians. We are able to affect the world of change in a way that no one has ever seen before in a very long time. We've never had more humans practicing it. We've never been anything else. Even last night, I finally decided to take up the CBS All Access. And I watched the second episode of Discovery. Now, it's interesting. I won't give them many disclaimers, but in that episode, they talked about a group of entities, a group of human beings who got transported 200 light years away in 2053 from Earth to be brought to a new world. And they didn't know who it was, so they took the major religions, 6 religions, as being world religions. World religions in 2053. And Wicca was one of those 6 religions. And in 2018, we worked very hard to have us recognized globally. So to see a fictional account where they said Wicca was a 6th religion, one of the 6 religions, that they were synthesizing into a world religion of the time for New Eden to survive World War III in that fictional way last night on May Eve, the great day of the Fae, the sort of magic, really spoke to me because we've taken those actions into place. Yes, we stood before the world and we said, we are equal, we are worthy, we are part of your world, and we have a right to exist. Not only that, we have a responsibility to the world to exist. So you have a responsibility to exist. You have the right to exist, but you have the responsibility to exist. And your job is very simple. Create your magic, create your energy. Just don't let anything get in your way. Stop this idea. We've seen the world can be slowed down. You can change it, you can be it, you can do whatever you want. So that's it. This is Beltane, most miraculous, most magical, most energetic time we've ever seen. A world that has calmed down calmer. And for one brief moment, I think that we can understand. Remember, we were on the verge of World War III before this disease. There was a talk about invading Iran from the United States. Remember, right before this happened, we saw Australia burn to the ground, and there are many, 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 many species that are near extinction because of the fires that burned through Australia. We have seen many things happen, and there's going to be many more things that are going to happen. We're talking about a very active hurricane season. We're talking about fires that are burning in Australia. We also had fires burning in the rainforests of the Amazon and Africa. This year, people are talking about how hard this year has already been. This is a year of change, and it's not going to be a pretty one. It's going to become harder. I'm not going to kid you. It's going to become harder, and I'm hoping to be able to help, not only as a first elder of the Correllian tradition, not only as a magician, but simply because with the Order of Paladins and things like that. And so I'm going to leave that. So the last piece of things I've always added to our economy, and I guess this is part why I'm driving our economy. So we've talked about how we can make our world better. And so we've talked about fairy wells, and now you know where the origination of it and my communication with the fairy wells, of how we can make our lives better. How can we help them? The idea of increasing their belief in them and increasing our ability to collect resources and utilize it on their behalf. Fairy wells, wishing wells. We've talked about honeybees, and growing honeybees is great. And honey, remember, start working with your cooperatives, start putting in long-term storage, for people who want it, because it's going to change. We've talked about earthworms, the thing that I lost so many of. They grow quickly, and they're such a great thing to do. We talk about potted plants. We talked about, potting vegetables like cherry tomatoes and other things, and growing vegetables any way you can. And I'm going to tell you now, the food disruption in our cycle, we're about to see a huge food disruption. It doesn't matter. Supply chain will last. We're a very wealthy country. But, for our own health and for our own sake, let's do that. So the last thing I'm going to ask you to do is to basically believe in another singular idea. Do not be afraid to take and show your creativity. Share your art, share your spaces, share your altars, share your communications. It may not have a cash value, and some people are going to do webinars, and some people are charging a fortune, $40, $50, $60, $100 class, and it may be well worth it. Certainly readings are out there, doing readings and things like that. But the number one thing you can do for yourself today is find out what you really want to do. What would you do if you could do that over the long run? And communicate with me. And communicate with me with those ideas. I'll help you. I've got ideas. This is my new idea. This is my new space. I'm going to try to reach out to the world, and let's see if we can start to preserve ourselves. And the biggest thing that you can do and all of this. So as you're figuring out what you can do, the thing that you can do once you figure it out, we're going to figure out how to create connections between each other so we can localize some of our activities. So we're not so dependent on these terribly energy consumptive, high polluting lines of supply that are so dangerous to us right now. What if we can change the world? Well, we can. We have. I have. I have absolutely changed the world. And you know it. You've seen it. And I'm bringing more energy into the world than I've ever thought possible. And you want to know something? So can you. So today, I want you to find that thing that you want to share, that you want to trade, that thing that you can bring local. So when this quarantine begins to lift over the next couple of weeks, regardless if it's the right thing or the wrong thing to do, you're able to make connections with your community and begin creating resources that if this happens again, and it will, that we can make connections locally to help us support ourselves locally. So the next time this hits, the next virus, the next storm, the next dangerous moment in our history where we're going to be finding ourselves dependent on the goodwill of our neighbors, the goodwill of our own community, be it local or global, we'll have the tools to handle it. This is Ed, the Pagan for Correllian Education Minister, CEM Broadcasting. And thank you. And if you have any questions and answers for me, feel free to join me. Feel free to let me know. I'm going to grab 1 second. And let's go ahead. And we're looking at, oh, yay. I need to figure out a system out there. Hi from the UK. So amazed that I'm seeing people from all over the world. And so with that, I'm going to let you go. And if you have any questions or you want to be on my show, be on the Coffee Pusher Show, because I love coffee. If you want to explain your point of view, or if you have your idea for your own show. We did the Meet the Correllians last night, and I'm talking about the Good News Show. We're talking about so much that we were trying to do. Thank you for listening to me on this heart-to-heart talk this Beltane weekend. Go out there, be something, join Witch School, join our community, be part of it, and we'll talk again soon. Blessed be.